So many women do not realize that your nervous system is the real reason that you cannot lose weight. After my bikini competition back in 2021, I prepped for about 12 weeks from the beginning of the new year, from January 1st through April 3rd was my show. And my prep, yes, it was intense. I was doing like 45 minutes of fasted cardio 6 days a week, and my calories had dropped like somewhere within 13 to 1400 calories for those 12 weeks. But my body was so responsive to it. I lost 12 pounds in 12 weeks. And like, that is the rate of fat loss that you want to see. So for those 12 weeks, I was doing everything right. I leaned out pretty easily or pretty quickly. I was very disciplined. I was, eating clean. I was training hard. I was checking all the boxes. And then I did my show in April, in the beginning of April. And I really wanted to continue to stay lean. And so I did a slight reverse diet after that. I think, my calories had increased closer to like 16 to 1800 calories. But honestly, 6 weeks after my show, I stopped working with my coach at the time and just kind of coasted, but internally knew I wanted to continue to maintain the level of leanness that I had achieved. And because of that, eventually my body stopped responding. It wasn't until like November of 2021 that things really started to hit the fan with my biofeedback. I mean, my period had already been missing for years at that point. I don't even know the last time I had a normal period before I prepped, but I started gaining weight that I couldn't explain. My relationship with food started to get really rocky, and it was much harder to stay within that restrictive diet than it had been. I started to get really puffy, very exhausted, like energy crashing by like 2 to 3 p.m. I started struggling in my business. I was bloated no matter what I ate. Like, I can remember the pain of that bloating so severely. And for years, especially during those demanding seasons of my life where I was trying to scale a business, then my dad passed away and I was moving across the country in all of those exact same months, I was trying to keep my body in shape. I was trying to, reverse all of these symptoms that started to pop up seemingly out of nowhere. I was eating less, I was training more, I was pushing harder. Yet my body wasn't responding anymore. So despite the fact that I was still eating sub 1500 calories, I started adding back in some more cardio into my routine. Nothing changed. In fact, I would venture to say I felt worse, not better. And the truth is, because there was no amount of effort that was going to fix the root cause of the problem, which was the fact that my nervous system was completely wrecked and my body was just stuck in this survival mode. So I want to talk a little bit about your nervous system, because it's a dot that I don't really feel like many people are connecting in the fitness or wellness space. You hear a lot about hormones and metabolism and gut health, but your nervous system is what controls all of these different systems. So it does in fact have a lot more to do with fat loss than most women think. Your nervous system is the control center, and it works pretty much how I like to think of it, like an on-off switch, because your body has two different states. The on switch being your sympathetic state, where your body's in fight or flight. It's in that stressed dominant state, versus the off state, which is your parasympathetic state. This is the rest, digest, recover state. And your body is going to turn on this sympathetic state when it perceives danger or stress of any kind. And it's going to elevate your cortisol levels. Your blood is going to start getting pulled away from your digestion and your reproduction, and it's going to flood your muscles so that you can fight or flight. That is the systems that system of your nervous system turns on. Now, the parasympathetic state turns on when that danger passes, and it really starts to downregulate all of these systems, where your body can now prioritize, your metabolism and your hormones rebalance and your digestion kicks back in. This is where your body actually has the opportunity to heal from the stressor that it just had to cope with. And an optimal healthy body quickly shifts from both of these states. Quickly, efficiently, and frequently is able to go from one state of sympathetic to the other state, to the parasympathetic. And you don't stay in either one of these states for too long. However, the problem is that today women are stuck in this sympathetic dominant state, meaning you are constantly in fight or flight and never in that sympathetic mode. because your brain cannot tell the difference between something that is a real threat or real danger, like a lion chasing you, versus a full email inbox, a missed workout that all of a sudden creates so much stress and anxiety and overwhelm for you because it's like, oh my gosh, I'm going to fall behind and I'm going to gain weight. Or a calorie deficit that you've been living in for months that has deprived your body of the most important resource that it needs, which is energy on a cellular level. So stress is stress, whether it's mental stress coming from work or coming from your relationship, whether it's emotional stress coming from things of your past or, family situations, whether it's physical stressors of a calorie deficit or a lack of sleep or too much exercise with not enough recovery from that. And when this is happening constantly, which is the case for most of the women that I work with, your body is staying in that sympathetic state. It is, for lack of a better word, like permanently in survival mode. And in survival mode, fat loss is not the priority. Staying alive is the priority. So there's very specific things that happen when your body is stuck in the sympathetic state, in this survival mode state, that prevent fat loss from happening no matter what you do. So I want to break some of them down for you today. Number one is cortisol being the main driver here. This is probably doesn't come to us as a surprise to you, but really understanding why cortisol causes excess fat storage or prevents fat loss, I think can be really helpful for understanding how to reverse this and take control of it. Because it's not just about lowering your cortisol. Like, that is some of the worst advice for some of the women that I work with. Because a lot of women that I work with honestly have low cortisol because their cortisol has been high for too long. And B, because of what does that even mean? Like, let's make this tangible. So understanding how and why cortisol is the main driver here is because cortisol's job is to pull glucose into your bloodstream to fuel that emergency that isn't actually happening. So cortisol's job is to prepare your body to fight or flight. And one of the main ways that it does that is it pulls glucose into your bloodstream so that you have the energy to fight or flight. And this glucose inside of your bloodstream leads to blood sugar spikes and crashes and cravings. And so it's going to impact your habits. Where you have more cravings, you're turning to more sugary carbohydrates, you're probably overeating, and also energy crashes. So you're not moving as much. Your workouts aren't as high quality because your energy and your appetite are like this crazy roller coaster. But also, when your blood sugar is elevated, your body releases another hormone called insulin. So this increases your insulin production, which insulin is a storage hormone, meaning its job is to take the glucose that's in your bloodstream and shuttle it into your cells so that it can be used, so it can be burned, so it can turn into ATP. But if you aren't actually in a state where you need to fight or flight, there's no actual danger, well then your body doesn't have to shuttle that glucose into cells to fight or flight. So what does it do with that glucose? It stores it. It stores it typically as fat, and especially around your midsection to protect those vital organs. So that is the one major driver of how your nervous system and being chronically in that sympathetic dominant state where your body's pumping out excess cortisol causes fat storage. The second thing that happens in survival mode is your thyroid down regulates to conserve energy. So this is more so along the lines of metabolic adaptation, where when your body perceives stress or threat or even like low energy availability being the most common one that I see with clients, it's going to decrease the amount of energy that it burns. It's going to your cells are going to get really efficient at using less calories. And therefore, what does your body have to do with those calories that it's not burning? It's going to store them. And it does this specifically by down-regulating your thyroid. So think about it like this. There's like three main hormonal pathways that your nervous system controls that start at your hypothalamus. So you have your HPA axis, your hypothalamus pituitary adrenal axis. You have your HPT axis, which is your hypothalamus pituitary thyroid axis. Then you have your HPO axis, your hypothalamus pituitary ovarian axis. The HPA connects to your adrenals and it produces cortisol for the stress response. The HPT obviously connects to your thyroid and controls your metabolism. And your HPO connects to your ovaries to support reproduction. And if this HPA axis is on overdrive, producing all of the cortisol that it needs to handle the stressors that you're constantly under, well, then these other two pathways are going to be suppressed. If your hypothalamus is like, we need to put all energy and resources to handling the current stressors that we are being put under, we don't have the energy and the resources to give to metabolic functions and to reproduction. So your brain is literally going to send signals to these organs to slow down production of reproductive hormones and also of thyroid production as a whole. Another mechanism that your body has when it's in survival mode is that even if it is producing, even the thyroid hormones that it is producing can be converted into a form that is unusable and frankly blocks fat loss. So there's 3 thyroid hormones that are produced: T4, T3, and then this sneaky little hormone, reverse T3. So T4 is produced by your thyroid glands, and it gets converted into T3 to perform metabolism on a cellular level. But when your body is in survival mode, when it's stressed, it's very, very smart. And so instead of converting your T4 to T3, it's going to convert it to reverse T3, which blocks your ability for any T3 that's in your body to be able to bind to your cells to perform the function or signal properly, literally at the cellular level. This is going to tank your metabolic rate. Therefore, your body's burning less calories in the day, despite really nothing changing in your routines or your workouts. And this is why the conversation when it comes to fat loss is so much bigger than just calories in versus calories out. And the third reason that way that your nervous system can stall fat loss is the digestion connection. So digestion completely shuts off when your body is stuck in the sympathetic dominant state, because it's taking all of its resources that it would typically give to those vital systems, processes, and organs that aren't necessarily essential for survival, and it is taking all those resources and pushing it out to your extremities for you to fight or flight. Your digestive system is one of the main things that shuts off, and that's why the parasympathetic state is literally called the rest digest state, because that's when digestion can actually turn on. Digestion cannot be supported when you're constantly in sympathetic dominant state. Also, your digestion uses so many calories to actually function optimally that when your thyroid, your metabolism is on low power mode, that's going to make all of your cells work at a fraction of their optimal capacity, right? So your digestion requires so many calories to actually be able to function optimally, from the breakdown of your food to the detoxification of your food to the absorption of your food to the conversion of your foods. Like, when your body doesn't have the calories to do that, the energy to do that, the nutrients, the cofactors, the enzymes to do that, that is where all of these digestive systems start to come to fruition. And this is why so many women are constantly bloated. You're constipated, even when you're eating super clean and healthy, because your digestion doesn't have the resources, the signaling, the energy that it needs to actually function optimally. And the truth is, like, poor digestion, yes, it causes bloating and constipation, which can lead to a higher number on the scale and you just to feel uncomfortable in your physique. But it also turns into so many other downstream issues that are going to put you in a very vulnerable state to store excess body fat. It's going to turn into nutrient deficiencies. So when your body isn't digesting properly, it's not absorbing your food properly, which means it's not absorbing what you're eating from like a nutrient standpoint. That is going to compromise your metabolism and your energy levels even further than it already is. And poor digestion is also going to cause inflammation inside of the body, which directly obviously increases your vulnerability to weight gain, because inflammation is going to suppress your insulin sensitivity. It's going to cause water retention. It's going to impact your immune system, keeping your body in this fight or flight state. No matter what you do on the outside, like that stressor is coming from the inside because there's inflammation going on internally. So the bottom line here is, you can be in a calorie deficit, you can be eating clean, you can be training consistently and still not lose fat because your body perceives your environment as unsafe. And this is its way of actively protecting itself. You cannot outdiscipline a dysregulated nervous system. And that is what I tried doing for so long. After my competition, I didn't take the time to recover. I just kept pushing. I was eating clean, I was training hard, I was doing all of the right things, all the things I thought that I was supposed to do. But what I was actually doing was running my sympathetic nervous system into the ground. And then in 2022, when my dad passed away, that's when like everything tipped over. That was like the tipping point. That's when everything hit ahead, I think is the saying. And that grief that I experienced, it's a full body experience and it lives in your nervous system. And I literally had to take a step back from my business and from everything. And when I did that, when I took a step back from all those things, my body started really reflecting all of the things that I had been suppressing for so many years. And it took me until the end of 2023 to get my period back. And it wasn't because I found this like perfect protocol or the perfect diet. It's because I finally stopped fighting my body and actually started doing what was required to make it feel safe again from a nervous system level. And then in 2025, I started diving even deeper. I got the functional labs done that confirmed the same story that my body had been telling me for years, that now, yeah, my hormones were trying to come back online, but there were other things that were still going unaddressed or that I was working on, but with no real strategy, no real data. I was just kind of guessing. So my labs showed the gut issues very, very clearly, the adrenal fatigue that I still needed to recover from, the sluggish thyroid as a byproduct of all of this, and the metabolic dysfunction that was happening. And yeah, like I said, I'm still healing from it. I'm in a reverse diet right now, doing a full gut protocol, detoxing my liver, working on my cycle and energy and inflammation and all the things. But this is the pattern that I see so often with so many women. The ones who look on the outside like they have like the healthiest habits, but are actually just keeping your nervous system stuck in a chronic stress mode. And so I've touched on what some of these things are already, but just as a little refresher and to kind of wrap this episode up, these patterns that I see over and over and over again are chronic calorie restriction, even if it's unintentional, keeps your cortisol levels elevated, and it really just signals this scarcity to the body, and scarcity specifically of its most precious resource of energy, and that's going to keep it in a state of stress. Too much high intensity exercise without adequate recovery. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that you need to work out less, but you need to be intentional about how much you're working out, balanced with how much and how well you're recovering from that in this season. Inconsistent sleep is a big one. Your circadian rhythm and your nervous system are deeply connected with one another. And when your sleep is inconsistent, your cortisol pattern breaks down, because your cortisol works inversely to your melatonin, and your sleep and your circadian rhythm is one of the main things that control this cortisol rhythm. Your cortisol is supposed to be high in the morning to wake you up, to give you the energy that you need to perform. And then it's supposed to be its lowest right before bed, because again, we don't want that alertness, that energy that cortisol brings right before we're trying to fall asleep. But when your sleep is off, that pattern also gets disrupted with your cortisol, and now you're having energy crashes at 2 p.m. and you're not getting the spike in the morning that you need to give you the energy to go about your day, which is why you feel exhausted despite how much sleep that you get. And this whole cycle really just disrupts every other hormone downstream. And when you're having inconsistent sleep and your energy is poor and you're running off of cortisol, I also see a lot of women running off of caffeine. Caffeine consumption is a big stimulant, keeping your body in that sympathetic dominant state, and or constant stimulation from other things in your environment, from work, from emails, from social media, always being like on mode. And if this is you, I would really recommend you listen to last week's episode. I talk a little bit about some of the most common environmental triggers that I see for women. Like, you're doing everything right with eating and exercise, but your environment is still keeping you in this sympathetic dominant state. And then the last one is a lot of hidden physiological stressors, which is what I alluded to and what I'm currently working on in my own journey. Like in 2025, I felt like, okay, I've spent the past like 2 years really working on managing my stress and eating more and, healing my body and healing my hormones. I got my period back and I saw some improvements, but something was still off. And there were some hidden physiological stressors that I never would have been able to identify if I hadn't done the functional lab testing, the gut infections, the nutrient deficiencies, the inflammation, the liver dysfunction, and poor detoxification that was kind of backing up my whole entire system, really preventing my hormones from getting to the state of optimal health. So functional labs were such a game changer for me in this season of my healing journey. And to really just like put this all really simply, regulating your nervous system is doing the opposite of all of these things. It's not a bubble bath. It's not a meditation app. It's about signaling safety to your body through what you eat, how you sleep, how you move, and how you rest, how well you rest. Eating enough, especially enough carbohydrates. This is a big one. And it's one of the most powerful things that you can do for your nervous system. Also eating balanced meals throughout the day, every 3 to 4 hours, so that your blood sugar is not on this roller coaster, so your body doesn't get that signal of potential famine. That signal alone can really shift someone's cortisol patterns. Moving your body without punishing it, like strength training and walking, really are the best forms of movement to build resilience in your nervous system without overloading it or keeping it in this state of overdrive all the time. Your 6 HIIT classes a week on top of a full life of stressors outside of that just teaches your body to stay in fight or flight. Protecting sleep like a non-negotiable. This is really when your nervous system actually gets to reset fully. Consistent sleep and wake cycles give your body the predictability that it needs. And predictability is one of the key foundations of safety. Other things that feel kind of woo-woo but are actually very evidence-based and backed are some vagal tone practices. So your vagus nerve is the main communication highway between your brain and your body. And you can actually train this to be much more resilient, much stronger. So things like deep belly breathing with some longer exhales, humming, cold water at the end of your shower, grounding walks outside. Again, lots of evidence-based research behind some of these practices that really strengthen your body's ability to shift from that sympathetic to parasympathetic state more efficiently. And the last one, my favorite one, is joy. Joy. Real rest, real connection. These aren't indulgences. These are part of a healing protocol. And I think one of the things that is most misunderstood here is that nervous system regulation is some destination that you just achieve, oh, my nervous system is healed. No, it is a practice. It is consistently teaching your body over and over and over through every meal, through every boundary that you set, that you are safe. You're not just surviving. And if you are feeling like this episode is speaking to you right now, you're feeling stuck, you're eating clean, you're working out, you're doing all of the things and still not seeing the results that you want, you might want to consider that your body might not feel safe enough to actually respond. This isn't a matter of willpower or discipline. It's that your biology is frankly working in the exact way that it is supposed to. It is protecting you from the threats of your environment and your lifestyle that are part of your everyday life. And this is what needs to shift. This is what needs to change. The basic foundations of your habits. And this is the work that I do with clients, is really just rebuilding that safety from the foundation before we even talk about fat loss or a calorie deficit. So if that resonates with you, my DMs are always open. Let's chat about that. Thank you guys so much for tuning into this episode, and I will see you next week. Bye.